This episode of Let's Find Out with Diego is sponsored by Moonlight Monster Media. Please visit moonlightmonstermedia.com today.
From Moonlight Monster Media comes Dustin Grammer's debut as an author, Dirt Road Tales of Horror. Dirt Road Tales of Horror takes you on a terrifying ride through the southeastern United States, where ghosts, murderers, nightmares, and beasts lurk in the shadows, awaiting any brave or unfortunate enough to travel through their nocturnal domain. Prepare to be gripped by fear and fright should you dare decide to traverse these haunted and unhallowed roads.
Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
The borders of space and time have opened once again and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia. It's another episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, once a Department of Defense employee and lifelong contactee of interdimensional extraterrestrial beings, our guest has boldly stepped into the limelight of alien disclosure and spiritual awakening. Her path took a pivotal turn as she delved deeper into her encounters with extraterrestrial entities. With utmost conviction, our guest has unequivocally arrived to a profound realization. It is time for disclosure. Our guest charts the course for a remarkable journey of unveiling the truth. All this plus more. Please welcome to Let's Find Out a new friend to our show, Nancy Thames. Nancy, my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out. It's an honor having you on the show. This is great.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be here. This is what I love. This is my sole purpose in life. And, it took me a long time to understand what this all meant and the purpose. And now I do. And I'm happier than I've ever been. And it is such a wonderful thing. And it makes me feel good to be able to share. And hopefully, if only one person will open their heart and try to understand that these are beautiful times ahead of us. We have everything in the world to look forward to. And, it's just wonderful. So I'll start with however you would like for me to start. If you would like to ask me questions, or if you just like for me to kind of just roll out there like how it all started, or what age, all that different things, whatever you want.
Well, yes, normally, I know that a lot of interviews start to say, hey, when did this happen? Give me the timeline. And it's fair to ask those questions. Looking at your bio and your years of experience, sometimes I struggle while I was writing this to where to start, because there's so much to cover. And I understand that each experience is a little bit different than the other. When we speak about disclosure, we're living in times now where you're seeing more and more information leaking out, whether it's on social medias and the news. And sometimes you have to be careful what source this information comes from. And when we're talking about your experience as a contactee, was this something that was a once in a lifetime experience? Has it happened several times during your life? And I know there's a lot of questions all wrapped up in one question of the package here, but was each time a different experience?
Absolutely. I'm 64 years old. This has been happening since my birth. It even goes back way before my birth. I did not know until I was in my 30s that basically, I'll start from the beginning. My first conscious face-to-face contact that I remember happened around 2 or 3 years old. And this has been reoccurring all during my life. There's so many times I couldn't tell you how many, because it's all the time. And I have face-to-face physical in this body contact where I hold hands with them, I embrace them, I touch the temperature of their skin, I touch their face. I have a really loving bond that is mutual. So when I was little, the way it would happen is they would send 3 grays to come and get me. And these were hybrid grays. I didn't know that until later on. But these are, I'm assigned to one, and she is a female, and we are bonded. And she's been with me all my life. She is always, up until this day, who comes and gets me, prepares me for travel, gets me to craft, presents me to whoever, and then she disappears. And then when I'm on craft, I am around the interdimensionals. I'm around tall grays. I'm around reptilians. I'm around humanoids that I don't really know if they're Palladian or Nordic or what, but they're humanoid looking. And then there's aquatic beings. There are so many different beings. Some of them have not even been, that as far as I know, have not even been brought up here on Earth. So the interdimensionals are interdimensional, meaning that dimensions are not physical places. These are higher levels of consciousness. And these are realms that go beyond what we can visibly see. So it's kind of like an onion layer. You know, an onion layer is all around and they touch each other. So dimensions are more like that. So you can't see the first layer, the third dimension. You can't see past it to go to the upper onion layer, which would be the fourth dimension, and so on, so on, so on. So they're all around us all the time. We just don't see it. They're all in our skies. They're all in our solar system. And we cannot see it because we're only using our 5 senses. That's all that we have the ability to do in this realm. We're in a 3D realm. So there is things going on even on our planet that we are not able to see. From my teaching, from what they've taught me all my life, and it has progressed more and more as I've gotten older, because I now know I was an interdimensional being before I came to Earth. And I know that I made it a choice before being born and having my human experience. I made agreements to come and be here. And it was picked and done so that I would be here at this particular time, because the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials always knew that this was going to happen at some point. Maybe not the exact day, but they knew. So they've been preparing for this, what I call an evolutionary leap of humanity. And that's the part of extraterrestrials and interdimensional that I belong to. And my 2 sons, the oldest one in particular, has all the same experiences and the Kundalini awakenings and all that they have gifted me. So I guess they knew as we get closer to this evolutionary phase, I would probably need somebody to talk to, someone to sit down and have these in-depth conversations that we have about what is your perception of your experience? What is my perception? Let me tell you what I experienced. Let you, and we can sit here and converse and share with each other. And it's a beautiful process because he's not judgmental. He's not biased. He knows these things are real. He has his own experiences. We've never had, other than being in the same room when his 3, he has a different 3 that come for him. He has his own person or own extraterrestrial that he is bonded with. So if we're in the same room, which we experienced this while we were in Mexico, the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials sent us on a trip down to Mexico, and they wanted us to explore and go up to this mountain called San Jose del Pacifico, which is on the southern side of Mexico, most southern on that side state. And we flew into Mexico City and then flew a shorter flight over to what they call Oaxaca. Well, the whole state's called Oaxaca, starts with a O. I'm not good at Spanish. And the city that we flew into starts with an H, Huataco. It looks like Huataco, but I think the H is silent. So it'd be Huataco or something like that. Huataca, something like that. And the city that we took a car and drove up this mountain for 3 hours was called San Jose del Pacifico. And when we got up there, there was no electricity. And we were there for 7 days. And they wanted us both to experience seeing an indigenous tribe. And this tribe is called the Zapotecs. And they go back as far as the Mayans and the Incas. They are indigenous. There's many, many indigenous groups in Mexico. There's at least 60 or possibly more. 60 comes to mind. But this was the one they wanted us to go visit because they were on the verge of their ascension. And it fell through because their younger generations were more interested in materialistic things and technology. And they left their community, left their tribe, whatever you want to call it. They left their group of people and pursued into other interests, which has made this particular race that are also known as the people of the clouds, because up on this mountain, it takes you 3 hours to get up to where they live. And they have a little community up there. Some places has electricity, some places do not. And their homes, some homes have electricity, some homes do not. It is the most eco-friendly place I've ever seen in my life. They collect rainwater in cistern tanks for their drinking. And the ones that have electricity, they use it just for the lighting. They do all their cooking outside and their washing outside on not electric type appliances. The only thing electric that they really use is for light at night. So it was just unbelievable. And they wanted us both to be there and experience it in different ways. My son's a lot more physically fit than I am. So he actually went out with the Zapotecs and went out hiking into the forest. It's a very dense forest up there. And when you look down off the mountain, you can see why they call it the people of the clouds, because all the clouds are below us and it's extremely chilly up there. So it was amazing. And so even from getting on the airplane, when we were at the airport, our first flight was canceled. And then we ended up at the airlines paid for us a motel room. And our experiences started very exactly, even in Memphis, Tennessee, at the airport and at a hotel. That night, I woke up and I felt that they were coming. I have the ability, I know when they're coming, my frequency in my body changes. So I felt it. And I raised up and looked, and there were grays, and these were not any I'd ever seen. And they said, "This is not about you." And I just simply rolled over and went to sleep, because this has happened to me before. I had the experience of seeing my two sons taken when they were very, very young. And I was around 30. And at that point, I did not understand what was going on or anything about this. So I literally freaked out. I woke up and 3 grays that were even different, more different than anything I'd ever seen. They were 3 feet tall, very short, and they were gray in color, and they wore robes and had high collars. And when they saw me sitting up looking, as they manifested, one walks towards me and nudges me down in the bed and said, "This is not about you." And at this point, this was devastating. And they could sense my fear, my frustration, my anxiety, my anger. They could feel all these things because they're telepathic. They feel everything we feel. And because of that, they do not like what we feel. So they put me in a sleep paralysis. They did not put me totally in a seduced type state, because at that time I didn't understand why. I do now. They wanted me to experience and see that my children were being taken, and I was devastated. And so I was very upset, angry, all of the above. And the next morning after it was all said and done, my children were asleep fine in the bed, and they had no recollection or any memory of any of this. So when I got back to where I live, I meditated and asked for answers. Why me? Why my children? What is the purpose? What does it mean? All these things. And I do not profess to know everything. I do not profess to be able to summon them down or any special abilities. I'm having an energy being, having a human experience just like anybody else. So they did come, but on their time. They did not come immediately because I requested it. So when they did come, the female I'm familiar with, took me aboard a craft and presented me before a group of elders. And these were like a council or a group of elders, and they were all in front of me. And I presented myself, and the female gray presented me. And they then started explaining to me that I had made this agreement before being born, and that this was, part of an evolutionary thing, which I think I said. And so that's how I knew all that. But at the time when that happened, I understood, and they showed, I heard what they said, but I didn't grasp. It didn't register with me, because all I knew at that time was that my human life, that's all I knew. And, as far as I know, humans die, but put a 6 feet under, and that's it. That's all I knew at the time. So I just, they told me that as I got older, that I would have a better understanding and they would help me. So basically, they didn't tell me everything all at once. I don't think our human minds can handle all this information. It has to be done just like anything else to keep us in a perfect mental health state. It has to come slowly in increments so that we can keep our balance and being able to have your human experience, which is just as important, because I am a mother, I am a grandmother, and I love my family. So they did this intentionally to make sure, and the way they did it was to make sure that I could continue on with my human life. They knew that I would have struggles, and I have had struggles. Anytime that I've had struggles, I've been through 2 divorces, fighting over children, etc., the whole 9 yards. Thought it was the end of the world, but they would come to me and they would tell me, if being here on earth ever gets to be too much, you can always come home. And that did not register with me, because wow. I have in my, for me, this is it. I have no recollection of anything other than what they've told me, but it didn't register with me. I was not prepared to understand these things. I was not ready. So it just kind of went in and went out. But now what's happened is 2 years ago, they realized that I was struggling with more information that they were giving me. And I was questioning these things. Like I was questioning my own knowledge and things of this nature, because I needed more validation, more affirmation. So they gave me a Kundalini awakening. And when they did that, and they explained to me all that, but basically what happened was they opened up my subconscious into my human conscious and allowed me to remember, and opened up all my extraterrestrial and interdimensional information into my human consciousness. And they also did that with my oldest son. And these things happened not exactly at the same time for us both, but pretty much in the same area, because I didn't run out and tell anybody about it at first, because I did not even know what it was. I did not know that if maybe I had died in my sleep and had a near death experience. I really didn't know what this was. And for me, I was in my bed when it happened. For him, he was out on a hiking trip, camping out in the forest, and it happened to him that way. But we were later talking, and I brought it up, and he goes, Mom, I had that happen too. So these things are done intentionally because they are here for the same purpose. They're here to help me and to help, they will live longer than me. So maybe if I can't continue all of what I'm here to do, then they'll take my footsteps and follow into it later. But for right now, while I am here, they work at helping me, to be able to do what I'm doing. And they're fully committed, because they're experiencers. So, and throughout my life, as I've gotten older, the frequency difference between me and extraterrestrials and interdimensionals, when I first really noticed it and it scared me to death, was when I was about junior high or high school. At that age, I had been confronted with the world around me, and I was hearing all the negative things in the world, all the negative things people had to say about extraterrestrials or interdimensionals. I grew up in Tennessee, which is part of the Bible Belt. And most of these people considered this demonic. So, and my parents, they told me, you cannot talk about this at your Girl Scout troop. You cannot talk about this to your basketball team players, your softball team players, et cetera, et cetera. You cannot talk about these things. They literally have put people in straitjackets and put them in a mental institution for discussing these kind of things. And in the old days, they used to burn people for talking about things like this. So I figured out not only didn't fly with the world around me, but my family as well. When I was little, it might have been funny and cute. They thought maybe she has an imaginary friend. But as I got older, this is not what they wanted to hear about. They told me, you cannot talk about this. And I learned, you cannot talk about this. And I suppressed it. And it was not fun, and it was not easy. And I've been just as scared as anybody else at times because of my not understanding it all. And as I got older, I understood that I recognized that my fear was what was preventing me from my understanding. My fear was what was stopping me from having more conscious time with them. And so I started working with that, and it was not easy, and it did not happen overnight. It's just something I had to work on, and I still work on it, because when I feel them coming, a lot of it's like depends on how I feel at the time. Maybe I've had a bad day. Maybe I've had a good day. Maybe I'm just tired and don't want to deal with it. I'm a human being. I have the same feelings that other people have that don't have these experiences. So it depends on when they approach me and how I feel. But now what I have to do is when I feel and know that they're coming or I'm fixing to have this experience and I feel it within and my frequency changes, I have to mentally start preparing myself going, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I've done this before. I know what this is. I've got to push through whatever even pops in my mind, because our human responses to these things is fear. Is just like when we were first created, everything around us was considered a predator. We have that fear or flight gene in our DNA that surfaces when you come across an interdimensional or extraterrestrial. But you have to go, whoa, no, this is not what that is. That is not fear I'm feeling. I'm feeling their frequency. And
okay.
Yeah, it's their frequency that I'm feeling, and it's different. And I have to remind my brain, I do know what this is. So it's really strange. And it's like I said, I love who I am today, and I know who I am today, and I know what my sole purpose in life is. And I know that when I leave this human vessel, my life will continue on elsewhere. You know, when we're in a temporary bodysuit having a human experience, we've been told that a lot of people believe that when we die, it's over. The game is over. Our game is just beginning. We go on and have many more lives and experiences. It's a never-ending thing. We're immortal in that department. Now our human vessel stays here. But so I've learned so much. They have made me understand the world and the universe and my place in it. And I think that's what's happening with humanity now. We're all going through our ascension, and we're all waking up, and our awareness and everything is changing. Our levels and perceptions are going to increase. Our awareness of what we can visually see around us is going to change. And it's going to be done in a beautiful, slow process so that it is not overwhelming to our brains. We will not have people running around with shotguns acting insane, because this is not the first time that our creator source, who they believe in, and they all have souls. This is not the first time that they've seen beings go through this evolutionary big step. So it's new for us. This is the biggest thing since our creation. This is a big evolutionary leap for us, but it's not new for them. But they are so thankful that we have finally reached this level. We're going to be at a level to where we can finally understand our connections with our planet, our connections with the universe, our connections with all living creatures on our planet. And what they've taught me, everything is alive. That's what they wanted me to go to Mexico. When I went outside on the deck with them, they took their hands out and said, everything is alive. And I could see plants talking, trees talking. And a tree was laughing at me and saying, and I'm like, why is the tree laughing at me? And the interdimensional said, because humans run around cutting them down, and they provide the air that you breathe. You take nuts and fruit from their trees and eat them. You cut them down and you warm your bodies. You cut them down and you build homes and use them for many, many other things. And you never, ever appreciate the fact that they are a living, conscious being. And so that's another thing. They wanted me to understand that everything on this planet was created to support and sustain each other throughout our lifetime. Everything we ever needed for our health, our wealth, our security, to eat, to keep us warm, was put here. It was done when we were created. Through these fractions of negative leaks or negative forces, dark forces, whatever you want to call them, Cabal, Illuminati, whatever you want to call these things, have had control over humanity for eons, eons, and eons. This goes way back past our great grandfathers and on and on. It started way back, all the way in the beginning when we have separation of languages, separation of religions. All these things were done to intentionally keep humanity separated, because the ones that control us, the elites, as long as they can keep us unhealthy and as long as they can keep us dumbed down, they are in control. They control and manipulate our governments, us. They put toxins in our air, our water, our food. They make us take pharmaceutical drugs, synthetic drugs that our bodies aren't even equipped to take. They have technology and cures for a lot of diseases and all things, but they cannot make money off of healthy, intelligent individuals. So all these things have been done intentionally. And now they control our media, what we hear and see on our television, because they want negative information, negative, everything negative, because that is another form of keeping us divided in division, separation of opinion, separation of perceptions, all these things constantly to keep us in a drama-filled negative world, which leads to sickness and unhealthy beings. and creates wars. All these things, even the wars, make them money, but it makes us miserable and unhappy. So now that we're reaching this point, every living creature on our planet and our earth and the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials are celebrating. Finally, us human beings are reaching a level that will understand that these old programmed ways will no longer serve us. And it's time for new thinking, new ways of living, new things. And they will help and assist us. They're not here to take over or anything. If they wanted to do that, it would have happened a long time ago. They are billions of years ahead of us in evolution. They were here before we were. They watched and played a part. Notice I said a part. They did not totally create us. They believe in a creator source. Creator source had a part in their creation. They played a part in our creation, but they were not the creators of us, and they don't claim to be. And they're only here to help us. So there's so much misinformation out in this world, and it was done intentionally. But through our ascension, through our evolution, we'll start having the intelligence to understand these things. And our world is fixing to change because of this. Our world is changing as we sit right here. Our world is changing. We are changing, and things are going to get better. We just have to be patient and let evolution run its course and work on trying to fix us ourselves, work on ourselves, work within. And as we fix ourselves, move outward towards our family and children, and then it can go further. But keeping in mind, everybody here is on their own spiritual path, here to learn and experience something. We cannot force anyone to do anything they're not ready for. They have to want these things. It has to happen organically for each individual on this planet. That's the way it is. That's just the way the universe works. And it's done that way because all of us are a part of it. All of us chose to be here, even though we don't remember it. We chose to be here. We knew before we came here, we were going to be here for this big evolutionary stage. So we need to look within and remember, find it in our hearts, find it in our soul, what our soul purpose for coming here. Because in my opinion, we are the disclosure. It's not extraterrestrials. It's not the government. Humanity. We are the disclosure. We are realizing how unique and wonderful we are. And the whole planet and the whole universe and all of the interdimensional extraterrestrials are all celebrating and are around us right now, watching and thrilled with us because it's taken us this long to get to this point. And we have to remember that regardless of what has happened in our past, whether it was good or bad, it made us who we are today. And it's what we do today is the determining factor of who we are. Our past is the past, and we'll have to not forget all the misdoings in the past, but we'll have to forgive and move forward to be better human beings and create a world for our future generations of humans. And I think we'll go down in history as the generation that made the change that the world has been waiting on.
And and I can't wait for that day to really actually happen, because a lot of things we've gone over here, and I have a few questions because I want to go back a little bit on that, because
Sure.
when you're talking about being open to the frequency or the contact for these beings, one thing pops to mind to when, not during what time of the day, is what is it that you're doing at that point? Because I would hate for something like that to happen while, let's say, you're driving a vehicle, or let's say you are out for a jog or doing something. Do they wait for you to get home? You're in a safe
Yes.
environment?
Yes, they do.
Great, because it's also, you mentioned earlier too that you've had experiences pretty much with the same ones throughout the lifetime. And I think once or twice it was different ones you had never seen, like the smaller grays, correct?
They're on craft. They're on craft.
Mhm.
These are motherships. Now, as they're taking me to craft, one thing I didn't tell you is that when I was younger, they would change. Did I tell you I was changed? They changed my frequency by running a scanner up and down.
Oh, we didn't talk about the scanner part. No,
Oh, okay.
I don't
Well,
recall that. I'm sorry.
so we're in the 3D world, and we are at a lower frequency because of that. So for me to be able to go up through a roof or a ceiling or a door like them, they would run a scanner up and down from head to toe, toe to head, and it would change my frequency to match their frequency. Therefore, they could take me up to craft. So I never understood how in the world I could go through an attic and actually see the insulation around, see boxes that my parents had stuck our Christmas decorations, et cetera, all in. But now I understand they were changing my frequency. And everything that they do is with our best intention. And even when I talk about, like, for example, when the 3 little grays came for my boys and how horrific it was at the time, they could have done that without me ever even knowing, but they wanted me to know it because it served a higher purpose than the moment that it happened. Because all of the things that happened to me made me who I am today. And I understand they wanted me to see that because they wanted me to know that my family is a part of this. And at times when I felt alone, I was never alone. I've never been alone because they've always been with me. And my children came here to be a part of this with me. I don't know that they were children in that life, in that experience. I don't know what my relation with them is, but in this life, they are my children. So, and that's a whole nother thing that we sit down and have these deep conversations about. We've even speculated that perhaps we are alive still up there, okay? And we're in a sleep stasis on craft. And this is the dream down here. We have very deep conversations because I don't think that we'll ever totally understand all of this. They are a billion years ahead of us and in evolution, and our way of thinking, our way of living, our perceptions, our physics, our science, our what means of traveling through the universe is nothing compared to what it's like in their reality. So, it goes real deep. And so you can understand why our government might have trouble coming out and explaining to the whole world. We do not understand these beings that are a billion years ahead of us because none of our things here on Earth apply in their world.
Right. It's a whole different set of rules, a whole different existence, really.
Yes.
One of the things that I was going to ask you, you kind of answered the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
You spoke earlier about they told you this is part of the agreement that you made in your, I'll say, pre-life or your pre-human existence.
As an interdimensional being, I chose to do this.
Right. And has there ever been any time during your life to where something happens where maybe I will say a snapshot of that life comes to picture in your mind? Because saying that you don't really have any memories of that life, but sometimes things happen to break through.
And that's why a lot of times my son and I, our dream state is very, very active. And they come and get us a whole lot, not together. We don't live in the same house. They come and I'll just keep it on me, but okay. So they come and get me. And a lot of times they turn off my human consciousness because I have a life up there. A lot of my experiences is of being up there. And this pretty much happens nightly a lot. And this is how I learn more and more all the time because it never ends for me and it never ends for my son. because, and every time we get one question figured out, there's always another one. So I am constantly up there, and I remember, but I think what I'm remembering is I'm not in the human, I'm in my human body, but I sincerely think I have a extraterrestrial consciousness and interdimensional consciousness and a human consciousness. And a lot of times I have to remind myself, because my first response will be my human consciousness. And then I'll say, whoa. And then I'll let my extraterrestrial one walk in and kind of like say, okay, you're letting ego, you're letting pride, you're letting blah, blah, blah. It's really strange and hard to explain, but to answer your question, yes. I was always in dentistry here on Earth, and that's what I did up there. I was in a medical dental thing, and I have my memories are of working on beings, and they're not necessarily human all the time.
Right. So in a sense, we could say you have like a dual citizenship going on.
Yes. It
Right,
seems like it at times. Yeah. But there's no way I could prove something and I don't care to prove it. I am what I am. And I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm not selling anything. So far, I haven't written a book. I probably will, because my grandchildren and my children need to know what their grandmother has stepped out and faced the world with. And my goal is to reach the United Nations and try to get them on board with this to help humanity and to get us all prepared and have the backup programs for the people that might flip out. So this is a big deal, and it means everything to me. And I love extraterrestrials and interdimensionals, and I love my family, and I love humanity. And this is my sole purpose in life. This is important. And this is not a joke. And this is not about me. This is not I just happen to be, whatever reason, the human being they chose and put my extraterrestrial interdimensional consciousness in. I don't know why. I don't know why they, I don't know if, I do know that I agreed, but I don't know that I picked this particular, I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know everything. That's all I can say. Yeah.
No, and that's fair to say. I mean, we'll never know anything until we reach that next level. Even when we reach there, we're still not going to know, because we're going to learn more about whatever exists as we're going to be next.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I've had several conversations with different people who have our experiences or contactees, and it falls into two different kind of camps. And to be honest with you, a lot of them hated the whole experience that we're in. They feel like they were either their trust was violated, or they felt pain of some sort, whether physical or mental. Is there a reason that perhaps some people don't have a better experience than others? Is it because subconsciously they're trying to break that contract? They don't want to be part of that contract anymore?
Nobody remembers their soul contracts, their prior agreements. And like I said, I don't know everything. I do know that I had an agreement, and I've been told all humans have agreements, but I'm not every human on this planet. So, and my perception is only as good as my level of consciousness at the time that I'm receiving it. And it might peak a little more as I progress, as I age or whatever. But I feel like everybody here has some type of agreement with them. And that's why some individuals never have any contact with them. And they're not chosen because of DNA or genetic or whatever. It's because of their soul agreements. And as we reach this higher levels of consciousness, I think more people will remember and recall these things. And I think that's why our government is lagging on this disclosure of things, is because I think that they have information they're not sharing, because there's no need to alarm the whole world when they know what I know, that our perceptions, our awareness, all these things through this evolutionary state we're going through is going to help pave the way. And they won't have to be the bad guys telling us these things. We will already know these things, but we will be at a level of understanding, and we will handle it much easier and better. And that's what the visions and things that the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials have showed me, is that our ascension, it's not a physical place. Like I think I said that it is higher level of consciousness. And these things are not like night and day. These things happen very, very slow, because it is a worldwide phenomenon. And it has to happen that way. If it happened too quickly, some people would flip out. Their brains would break down. It has to be done. And they've done this over and over, and seen this happen over and over throughout many galaxies and many universes. This is not their first rodeo, their first ascension or evolutionary leap that they've seen with beings. It is new for us. So, it's going to be a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I think we just have to start within ourselves, and then start working outward fix ourselves first, then our children, then our rest of our family members, and then out from there. But keeping in mind, everybody here is on their own spiritual path. And just as many of us that have agreed to want ascension and conscious awakening, all these things, there are some perhaps that are incarnated here to do the exact opposite.
You almost read my mind. I was going to mention something and I don't mean to not technically offend you, but offend my friends or the listeners that will be listening to this episode. With these beings saying that we are assigned one or two, perhaps, have we made the mistake, or has religion made a mistake? Because we're talking about guardian angels, but all this time we actually been talking about extraterrestrials.
I think most of the time, yes. Let me give you an example that they told me.
Sure.
Okay. For one, I don't know if I told you, but the interdimensionals they're tall, much taller, 7, 8 foot tall. And they are luminescent looking, shining, luminescent, glowy, and that is because they're extraterrestrials are physical beings like us. They don't look like us, but they're a higher frequency than us and a higher dimension, but not like the interdimensional. So the way the interdimensionals explain to me, they say, look at us. And I see them all glowy and shiny and all this stuff. And they're of a higher consciousness. Okay. So they told me, if they were to take me and say, okay, they come and get us, teleport us back into the biblical times, the humans there would look at us and call us the shiny ones, because we are of higher consciousness, higher above their level, higher consciousness, and we would be the shiny ones to them. So that's why a lot of these angels and things were perceived at that time as being that, is because they were different and they had a different frequency. So they could have felt like what I feel, just like you want to melt right in front of them, because their frequency is so phenomenal. It is unbelievable. And for me, it was the fear never stemmed from what they look like. It is that overwhelming frequency you feel. It is unbelievable. And I don't even know how to explain what it feels like. It's almost like fear and euphoric mixed together. Incredible. It's incredible. In your brain, it's not like anything we experience here. So, our perception goes all over the place. And when we start to flip out, they tap us out. And then when we wake up, all we remember is the fear, the horrific fear. And that is real. That is real. It's real. But the problem is, a lot of times you ended up going through the experience in a staggered state or a blocked state, but you were fully functional. But that's why you hear people talking about like missing time, fragmented memories. And for me, I experienced fragmented memories, and I've had little bits of missing time at, places too. But these are the things. It's all about us reaching higher consciousness, reaching higher frequencies. Everything about this is us understanding that our perceptions, our awareness are going to change. And in the past, how we dealt with these things is perfectly fair. And nobody lied. Nobody made up the story. It's real. But being human beings, we have to fill in these areas. Our brain wants to fill in these areas with these things. And sometimes when they would come back and say, like they did an anal probe, they are a billion years ahead of us. They do not do anal probes. Hilarious. Do our doctors, and we're not even on their level, do we run around doing anal probes? No. So you understand, it's just all about the perception at the time of it happening, just like in biblical days, their perception at the time of it happened. And it's just like with Travis Walton.
The last name sounds familiar, but
yes, they made a movie about him, Fire in the Sky. He was the man from Arizona that was missing for a week. His perception at the time was very fearful, horrific, horrific. And they made the movie. And of course, when he signed over his rights to have that movie made, they took it and made it a box seller because they created more drama and fear in it, because that's what sells. That is what sells to humans. So they turned it around to more dramatize it and things of this nature, which he really didn't care at the time. Now he does, because he's older than me, and his perception and understanding is much different. And he's since written an autobiography to let the world know these things about what he felt at the time, and the way he looks at it now is totally different. Now he will tell you they saved his life. They could have left him there in the forest. They didn't go looking for him. He ran up on them. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time and got exposed to whatever it is, whatever they were doing. They were repairing their craft, whatever. And he got exposed to whatever it was, whether it was radiation or what, I don't know, something that was toxic to him. So in that process, they took him in, healed him, and he was with them for a week. And then they dropped him off, not in the same spot where they found him, because chances are he would have never been found out in the middle of the woods. They took him to an area where he could be found and easily taken to get hospital care. So again, it's just a matter of being where we are at the time that these things happen, how our brain perceives it, and understanding as we reach higher levels of consciousness, how these things will change and evolve, and we will understand. And also, the fact that, like for me, I constantly tell my subconscious anything that my human brain has blocked from me, I am ready. I am ready to know these things. I want to know now. I understand why my brain did that possibly throughout my life. It needed to comfort me or spare me. So we'll never understand why our brain works like it does, or why our technology is nothing compared to, it is just, there's so much, and we'll never know it all. And anybody that tells you they know it all, they're lying, or either they're delusional in their thinking.
I would run from them.
There's no way.
They're going to try to sell you on something you don't want what they're selling.
Something's up the sleeve.
Oh, I agree with you. And one of the questions that popped into my mind when you're talking about being on their ship or in another dimension or so.
Yeah.
While you were there having this experience, other than seeing your children, did you see anybody else? Any other humans? Were they there?
Yes. They were not humans that I knew in my everyday life. But yeah, there's always been humans up there as well. And a lot of times they seem to know me, or so I'm sure there's some humans that are further along than I am in understanding all this, because there's lots of times they'll wave and say, hello, good to see, whatever. And I'm just like, what, so yeah, there is. And I've been on other experiences where me and other humans were simply observers they were a group of explorers that were looking for creatures that had jumped timelines, and we were only observing them, and they were tracking down these cryptids, which at the time I didn't know what the word cryptid even meant, but they were looking for these creatures or cryptids that had jumped a timeline and creating havoc. And so these explorers, that was what their job title was to go collect these creatures, contain them, and take them back to where they belong. Because, our planet is beautiful. Everybody seems to appreciate it and love it. And we just take so advantage of it. It's insane. But this is a beautiful planet. And I've even seen extraterrestrials, even in the areas where I live, shopping in markets and mingling in with other humans. And these were humanoid looking extraterrestrials, but I could sense their frequency and they could sense mine. And they gravitated to me and I gravitated towards them. And I could tell that they looked strangely dressed and all that, but nobody else seemed to even care, and I've noticed that they can like telepathically mingle their way around people and get excused to be able to get put up in a crowd to be right where I'm checking out and stuff. So these things, there's a lot to all this. There really is. And there's so much we don't understand. And that's the first thing we have to realize. There is no humanizing. There is no humanizing to a race of beings that is a billion years ahead of us. And I do know this. You and I, our technology is a separate entity than us. I'm talking through a laptop. This is my technology. You're talking through yours. That's your technology. In their reality, their higher consciousness is their technology.
Ah, yes.
They do not use propulsions. They do not use fuels to travel. They do not travel the universes. Their craft, and the reason why we can't fly their craft are living conscious beings. They are living conscious beings. They are alive. And they have a pilot who is genetically designed to be a pilot. And that is his sole purpose. And he is bonded, like I'm bonded to a gray. That pilot is bonded to a craft. Nobody else can fly that craft but that pilot and that craft. So when the pilot gets in, his consciousness links up with the craft's consciousness and simply thinks of the destination, and bam, they go.
And that could explain how these ships move the way they do, because no human body can withstand that type of a force. But if something's linked to that machine or to that living organism, of course, they could definitely do that.
And that's why we cannot fly their craft, because it was originated and designed with a bonded entity up there. And we can't fly those things. And plus, because we're not at that level of consciousness. We're not, you know what I'm saying? I don't care if you're even psychic. You can be psychic, but you're still not at a higher level of consciousness.
No, and yeah, because being that, as you said, they're so much further ahead of us. They're actually watching us evolve, and that's and that's a beautiful thing. So before we go, it's one of those things to where I don't know how you can prepare for such an experience. It's not like if you go with an experienced hunter or hiker to say, in case you run into a bear, do X, Y, Z. You run into this type of animal, prepare yourself this way. This is something totally unique in a way, because it's not only physical, it's also, I'll say, spiritual in a way. When someone has this type of experience, or I'll say being taken as a generic term, how can somebody prepare themselves for such an experience?
Meditate, and simply in your meditation, and also you can meditate to them. I do this every single day, and I ask them to help me with my vulnerabilities, help me with my fears, help me to understand what is happening, coming around me, and I ask my subconscious to step in and help my human consciousness to do these things. So I think it goes back to looking within, working with yourself, getting yourself prepared, and specify if you want it, and you want it to be beautiful, and you don't want any fear. Please help me with my fear. And they will do with things. They can come in your dream state. They can also, and I would say most people have had a visit in their dream state, but they brushed it off as some kind of dream, and or they could also, in my case, when I was little, they can pull an image, or even as an adult, they can pull an image from my mind that they know that I will be comfortable with. But in my case, when I was little, I thought it was Donald Duck running around. Okay. But now as an adult, they know that I know that Donald Duck wouldn't be running around in my room. But they can even use, if they want to be in an area where there's other people, they can come across as a person, an image from my mind that I feel comfortable with, but I know it's not that person. And they can have a full conversation with me, because sometimes they need to really get some messages and interact with me. And they'll go to that extreme. They don't do that on a regular basis, but in an extreme emergency, that they will do, they will do something like that. So they have these capabilities. And if you really, really want it, they will try to help you to work through it.
Great. And Nancy, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing not only your experiences, but your knowledge. And, I feel like today or tonight now we're at that, I feel like I'm one step closer to understanding this subject a little better. And I'm very honored to have you on the show. And
thank you. I you have to understand, I'm very respectful, and I am able to do what I'm doing because of people like you. And don't think for a minute I don't know it, because what you're doing, whether you know it or not, you are making an impact on the world too. And that is the goal. So thank you for allowing me to do what I do.
Of course. Thank you for the kind words. And now for the listeners, so let's find out my good friends out there around the world that want to know more about you and where you're going to be next, where can they go find information about you, your socials, and all that?
Well, my website I started a long time ago, before I ever started doing podcasting or anything, and before the government started all the disclosure stuff. My website is called timefordisclosure.com. And my Facebook group is Time for Disclosure / We Have Never Been Alone / We Are the Disclosure, because I truly feel everybody thinks it's up to somebody else to tell them things, but it's within us. The knowledge is already here. We just have to wake up and remember we are the disclosure because we're unique and wonderful. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds great. Wake up and remember. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Please check us out on all our social media pages, as well as on YouTube, where we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, Let's Find Out is now on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Catch the show on Saturdays at 2 a.m. For more information, please visit KGRADB.com. That's KGRADB.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Let's find out with Diego, the power of Diego Mania. All content for Let's Find Out is property of CoHostDiego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, CoHostDiego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.